Do you need Kuva for those Riven rerolls, or maybe just to craft something in Warframe? Well, I'm Tipsy, and today we'll be covering everything you need to know about farming Kuva for both new and old players alike in Warframe. So remember to like the video and subscribe if you want to see more, but let's just get right into it. So Kuva in Warframe is a special rare resource which is normally unlocked after completing the War Within quest. As completion of this quest actually gives you access to something called the Kuva Siphon missions, which is normally the first place you obtain Kuva from, but you can obtain it from other sources in the game as well. The Kuva can be used for crafting, as certain Warframe weapons and cosmetics will require Kuva as a crafting resource, while it can also be used to reroll the special Riven mods to try and get your perfect roll for your weapon mods. And you will need a total of 9,560 Kuva for all Warframes in the game, and 19,800 Kuva for all of the weapons in the game, while for the cosmetics it's a bit more, sitting at 121,000 Kuva for all of the cosmetics. Even though one of them is just a 100k straight up like honorary title, so that just makes the number way higher than it is. But Kuva is usually not that hard to actually obtain in bigger quantities, though as it is infinitely used for Riven mod rerolls, you will eventually run out of it once you actually begin trying to min-max your weapons in Warframe. So where do you obtain this special resource called Kuva from? Well, the first place, as mentioned earlier, was actually the Kuva Siphon missions, which comes in two different modes, the normal Siphon missions being level 25 to 35, while the Kuva Flood mode being the level 80 to 100 instead. In these missions you can find something called the Kuva Siphon, and successfully destroying one will actually grant you 550 to 700 Kuva, while in the Kuva Flood mode we are looking at 1100 to 1400 Kuva instead. And when you load into the Kuva Siphon missions, you will find a Siphon machine somewhere on the map, and every so often this will spawn a small invisible cloud that drifts towards the machine. Your job is to stop this cloud before it reaches the Siphon. If too many of these gets absorbed by the machine, you will lose out on the full Kuva reward. You should hear audio cue when a cloud spawns, and one of the Siphon braids should point in the direction it is coming from. You should also be able to use your scanner to see the cloud more clearly. And to destroy the cloud you will either have to void dash through it or shoot it with your operator. You need to destroy the 4 clouds, one for each braid, to fully complete the object. If you get all 4 braids, the Siphon explodes and your squad get rewarded with Kuva. If the Siphon manages to absorb 8 clouds, it teleports away, only giving you a small reward based on how many braids you manage to destroy. This is one of the earliest ways to actually obtain Kuva, and once you get further into the game we unlock some very quick ways and methods to actually unlock some Kuva very quickly each week. But there's also the Kuva Survival mission, which is an endless mission that can be found in the Kuva Fortress called Taveuni, and this mission works kind of like the normal survival missions, but enemies drop something called the Kuva Capsule that you will actually turn into a life support tower, and each capsule will then start a harvester countdown, and once you defend it for its time you gain 200 Kuva per harvest. So this is actually a kind of an early game endless method to farming Kuva. It's quite simple, you just run a survival mission and use the different towers that you normally would get oxygen from to actually just plug in the Kuva, and you will then obtain Kuva after a certain amount of time. There's also of course the disruption version as another endless method, though I would probably still rank survival as the winner out of these two. So the Kuva mission called Tamu also works like the normal disruption mission, but each round you will actually get a small amount of Kuva for the tier you have obtained, as seen here. You gain 100 for tier A, 200 for tier B, and then 350 for tier C, and also 50 Kuva for each demolisher you actually kill in these missions. There are many ways to obtain Kuva outside of these methods, but the ones we have gone over so far are very early and easy to complete. As mentioned, Kuva is also a resource loads of vendors and other areas reward sometimes, such as sorties and Archon hunts having a 12% chance to actually drop Kuva. We also have the old Requarium relics having a chance to drop 1200 Kuva, but this is only for the relics you will have to obtain from Paladino, as after the February's update the Requarium relics are getting a little bit of a change, and the relics that will have Kuva in them will no longer be dropped normally and will only be able to be purchased at Paladino and Iron Wake from now on. And also to add, Paladino actually sells 35,000 Kuva each week for Riven Slivers. So if you're looking for the best way early to mid game, I would say it kind of comes in 2 steps, as I wouldn't recommend farming huge amounts of Kuva yet, only for those small craft and other things you'll need Kuva for, as in later game we will get more ways to actually farm Kuva. So early on just focus on the endless survival mission for some quick small amount of Kuva, and if you get lucky and get an active resource booster you could even get 400 Kuva every few minutes, but otherwise you will be looking at 200 Kuva every few minutes while farming this in the endless missions. But as mentioned, there's also some mid-game vendors that we can have a look at to supply some extra weekly Kuva on the side. We already mentioned one of them, which is Paladino, who has the 35,000 weekly Kuva in Iron Wake after completing the Chains of Horror quest, and you'll just have to go into Paladino in Iron Wake on Earth, talk to them and trade in your Riven slivers for actually getting your Kuva. Another vendor that also have Kuva is actually Acrithis, the vendor at the end of the Duvari run or in your Dormi zone, who also can have a weekly item of 5,000 Kuva for Path of Clams. There is definitely more ways, but these are more in the later game and once you have actually completed the story, otherwise it will just keep up with the survival mission to actually get the Kuva you need early on. So as we have mentioned some of the vendors in Warframe, some has Kuva, but most are limited to a certain amount each week, while the Arbiters of Hexes has an infinite stock of Kuva, so for 25 Vitus you can get 10,000 Kuva, and this is an endless buy, so you can buy as many as you like, so this only depends on how much you can actually farm basically. So the real endgame and the meta method for actually farming loads of Kuva in the least amount of time is going to require a dedicated team of people farming the arbitration missions, with the actual meta set up to get as many Vitus Essence as possible per run with the optimal setup and players needed. And this will allow you to gain anywhere between 32 to 160 Vitus Essence every hour farming these arbitrations if you get lucky and have the right team and the right composition of rotation is in the play. And taking the casual route, which we'll cover next, will probably be the best choice for most players out there, but if you are a meta player and like to actually challenge yourself a bit, you can find groups for this meta play and farm Vitus Essence to get a load of Kuva quickly. I personally don't farm these meta arbitrations, but some people do and will be looking for group and stuff in different Warframe sections, as the Vitus Essence farm can also be used for other things and is pretty powerful platform if actually used correctly, as you will be able to do a lot of galvanized mods too, which you can then sell for a good amount of plat. Now that we have covered early mid-game and the late end-game methods and talked a bit about the actual vendors being pretty good way to obtain Kuva in Warframe, so this method is not really farming as to say, but it will be more like farming the resources needed to trade Kuva from multiple vendors instead here. This method is, as I would say it, the best casual method if you don't want to go full hardcore mode and min-max arbitrations. So first step in a new week will of course be getting 35,000 Kuva from Paladino and Iron Wake on Earth. This should just be a quick to do every week, as it is pretty quickly getting the Riven slivers, as they can be dropped from any enemy above level 41. Then next up we will have to head into Saruman and talk with Yonta, as she has a weekly shop that exchanges 5 Void Bloom Pions for 35,000 Kuva as well. The Void Bloom Pions can be obtained by killing Void Angels in Saruman missions, or every 8 hours one can be exchanged for Saruman resources as Yonta in the Saruman as well. Meaning you can obtain 35,000 Kuva every week by just doing either a few Void Angel runs or exchanging your reserve resources at Yonta every day throughout the week to have your Pions ready for the weekly reset. Next up is a way to obtain upwards of 250,000 Kuva each week, depending on how much you actually want to play Steel Path missions in Warframe, or if you casually use boosters to speed up things, as it could take a bit of time. So Tashion in Warframe, the Steel Path vendor, actually has the option to exchange 15 Steel Essence for 10,000 Kuva, and this can be done up to 25 times each week, meaning if you really wanted to farm some weekly Kuva while doing other activities, you could use your spare Steel Essence at Tashion for some quick Kuva. A good way to actually gain a bit without overdoing it is just focus on the daily incursions found on Steel Path mode, as each mission has a chance for Acolyte to spawn in, giving some Steel Essence, while each mission completed also reward 5 Steel Essence, meaning you will get 35 Steel Essence a day pretty quickly. So if you do all 6 daily incursions every day throughout the week, you can buy yourself 160,000 Kuva each week, and that is not counting the Steel Essence gotten from Acolytes or other missions or Steel Path missions you might play. Those are the main activities I would recommend doing, as they can be done while doing all sorts of stuff in Warframe, where the next few vendors we cover are more focused, as they can only be farmed in one place with a limited rewards if you have already gotten the stuff they offer. The first one is gonna be Flare in Holvania at rank 5 with the Hex, who actually sells 6,000 Kuva for 110 beating heartstrings, which can be turned in 7 times a week, and this is a rare resource you get 7 to 12 off each rotation, meaning every 3 waves in the Stoltis Square defense node in Warframe 1999. So if you just continue farming this defense node, completing an endless run basically, you will be able to obtain these beating heartstrings, which you can then be turned in for Kuva. And this 6,000 Kuva can then be bought up to 7 times a week, totaling 42,000 Kuva each week. I only really would recommend farming this if you are farming for the Warframe flare or actually the weapons, as you could then exchange your extra or the ones you have obtained on the site for the set you need. Something kind of similar that can also be bought 7 times a week and focuses only on one place where you'll be farming a frame and weapons is the Acrithis Scuttler Husk exchange, where you can get 6,000 Kuva for 100 Scuttler Husk, which is normally used to obtain the Warframe Orexia and her weapons, but extra Husk can then be exchanged to Kuva, and a little bonus upon completion of the Idle Weaver mission in Duvari, where you actually get your Scuttler Husk, can also reward you half of clams, which can then be used to buy 5,000 Kuva at Acrithis if the exchange actually shows up that week. Some other locations just to add them to the list are the Nightwave in your Arbiter that also have a Kuva exchange for Nora Creds, though other rewards should be prioritized over the Kuva from this shop. Then we also have the potential of Kuva appearing inside your Warframe 1999 calendar, where you can acquire 6,000 Kuva from. We also do have the Steel Path Circuit bonus reward of 20,000 Kuva that can be selected as tier 5 or 10 reward. And you might even get 35,000 Kuva inside the Barrow bi-weekly surplus cache as well, if you get lucky or unlucky, I guess, depending on what you actually want to get. And here is the list of all the different places you could be getting Kuva from. So personally, I would just focus on the Iron Wake, a bit on the Steel Essence, and the weekly Yonta exchange as my primary source of Kuva income, as I don't really roll that many Rivens weekly, but just slowly gather my Kuva, and then every so often I would do a few Riven rolls, and I will have enough Kuva to do so. But this is completely up to you, as you don't want to burn yourself out, and there's plenty of areas you could be getting Kuva from by just playing the game, which will allow you to earn a good stack of Kuva and be ready to be used once you need it. So no need to rush around, just play the game how you enjoy it, and maybe if you are in need of some Kuva, take a little look around the different weekly shops to see if there's some quick Kuva you could get. And that should cover most of what you need to know about Kuva farming in Warframe, as there's plenty of places to actually get it from, so hopefully you found what you were looking for. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment, and if you want more Warframe tips, don't forget to like and subscribe for future content, and also check out my other videos for more guides and tips. We also do have a Discord server, so feel free to hop in there and become part of the community, and thanks again for all the people supporting me over on Patreon. Thank you very much. Then stay tuned, stay tipsy, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace out.